A prison brawl in the arena ended Pawn Stars Chum Lee's career in life. One of the Pawn Stars members gets apprehended during a raid in Las Vegas. Chum Lee, after a comedic start, Austin Lee Russell, also known as Chumlee, finds himself in the middle of a scandal and faces a major undertaking. Not a single soul anticipated their arrival. Is his charisma and developing abilities going to be enough to get him through this? Let's find out his incredible strategies, secrets, and upcoming plans. Tragic event affecting just one person. A search warrant was served at Chum Lee's apartment in March 2016 by the Las Vegas police, disrupting both the tranquility and his life. After being associated with a sexual assault accusation, the search uncovered a stash of weapons and drugs. Some of the items seized were marijuana, methamphetamine, and firearms rifles, pistols, and handguns. In addition to weapons, there are often multiple recognized and unmarked police vehicles found strewn about a house when they do a search. After discovering weapons and narcotics, they decide to take him into custody. The authorities are particularly interested in the items discovered in several rooms, including the infamous Chum room, which was furnished with a stripper pole. In addition to the one he had made for the screen, police discovered cash contaminated with drug residue and paraphernalia, which gave the scene a distinct appearance. The seriousness of the situation was shown by Chum Lee's initial hesitation in beginning to secure armam. It is against jail regulations since drug users are not allowed to keep firearms, he explained, adding that the safe included private items like guns and marijuana. The weapons and medications were confiscated by the police due to this posture, sparking a lengthy legal dispute. The repercussions for Chum Lee were severe, and he had to cope with things like gun and drug possession. In an illicit quest that may alter his reputation in the eyes of the public, his lawyer, David Chesnoff, put up a solid defense. The media paid closer attention to Chum Lee's private and public life after his arrest. Two major turning moments occurred during the typhoon: a plea deal and a chance encounter. By pleading guilty to lesser offenses, excessive weapon ownership, and misdemeanor drug possession, Chum Lee reduced the risk of imprisonment, serving probation, undergoing therapy, and relinquishing the confiscated firearms were all requirements of the deal, which marked a major step toward accountability and repairing his reputation. The floor was covered in unclean towels, and someone had pulled the electrical cables. Estimates from Villafana put the cost of repairs at $20,000 to $30,000 based on the severity of the damage. Villafana recalled the joy he had experienced, acknowledging that he initially failed to understand Corey. No problems arose at the signing of the condominium deal, and Corey was quite nice when he left the RV. The tension started when Corey's assistant informed Villafana that the RV would not be returned on time. Word reached Villafana after a few days that the RV was in an ATV accident. After some time, the RV crashed into Villafana's property, causing extensive damage. Corey refused to pay the damages that Villafana sought in a lawsuit. Not only did the RV percentage insurance expire, but Corey denied being the cause of the damage. Even though his firm was already hurting due to the COVID-19 outbreak, Villafana's displeasure developed into a glare as he detailed how this incident caused him to cancel 10 reservations. While Rick deals with pawn shop dealings, Chumlee and Corey deal with felony difficulties. Additionally, Rick's interactions with pawn shops added complications. One of the extraordinary occurrences included what seemed like a simple diamond sale. Wearing a pointed match, a man entered the store with a firm grip on diamonds. A thorough inspection was joyfully conducted in such cases. He asked all the right questions about the diamond's provenance, how it was bought, and the paperwork that was required. The vendor presented what appeared to be official receipts and strong arguments. Due to his faith in the vendor, Rick forked over almost $40,000 for the diamond set. But the cops brought bad news a few days down the road when they visited the establishment. Word on the street was that the jewels had been stolen. The responses and receipts seemed real, but they were actually part of a complex fraud. The police recovered the gems and gave them back to their owner. Rick and the pawn shop lost $40 altogether because of this. An expensive lesson on the perils of dealing in extremely valuable objects was learned from this occurrence, which Rick later characterized as one of the store's biggest mistakes. However, that wasn't the end of Rick's issues with stolen items. Ryan also brought in an interesting event when he entered the store with a silver tire shekel coin. Sometime between 130 BCE and 79 CE, the Lebanese mint struck this coin. Played a pivotal role in the past. The fact that Ryan said it might be one of the 30 silver pennies Judas Iscariot got for betraying Jesus, according to the Bible, further added to the coin's allure. Even though Ryan's special declaration could not be tested, the capacity price of the currency became obvious. Rick insisted on paying $1,600 for the tire shekel, a price he thought was fair given its historical significance. Following the transaction, an officer arrived at the store armed with incomplete information. It wasn't Ryan who had taken the money, someone else had done it before it came into his possession. Coverage allowed the pawn safe to retain the currency, which was a relief. That wasn't the end of the story. Following a comparable analysis, Rick learned that Ryan had polished the coin, drastically reducing its value. The unique circumstances surrounding the tire shekel caused its value to rise to about $12. Since washing the coin had decreased its value, Rick overpaid by about $4.50. A new chapter in the pawn shop's history of trafficking in stolen goods began with this transaction, which had both historic charm and terrible financial judgment. There were some remarkable occurrences that did not occur in the pawn store. It seemed like every time something disastrous happened in the store, Chum Lee was at the center of it. Problems that Chum Lee had with important possessions. Careful handling was required of the delicate and valuable instruments kept in the returning chamber of the pawn. On the other hand, Chum Lee was not perfect in meeting this commitment. Unfortunately for the Harrisons, his irresponsibility and lack of prudence led to several expensive blunders. In one of the most memorable events, he was involved with a $20,000 guitar. Chum Lee, the person responsible for the storage area, leant the instrument against a stand instead of setting it up correctly. Naturally, the device fell and was permanently damaged. Because the consumer leaned back to retrieve the instrument, the shop had to shell out $20,000 to fix the damage. Their fame took a hit, and they lost money as a result of this tragedy. As expected, Rick and his companions were displeased. The importance of responsible digital use was something they had stressed to Chum Lee on multiple occasions. But every once in a while, his levity triumphed over his gravity. On numerous occasions, security cameras caught him messing with valuables. The antics of Chum Lee have always been something that Rick has to cope with, who had trouble utilizing the common sense of running a prominent commercial activity to keep Chum Lee from tripping over the screen. In the room, Chum Lee used a wide variety of techniques. A couple times, things got broken because he was careless. An antique vase was shattered when he tossed a football into the storage area, for instance. If he hadn't been careful, he would have damaged an unparalleled, irreplaceable artwork. The innkeeper always ended up losing money and dealing with unhappy clients. A great pawn keep mission was exposed by these events in the back room. People trust the pawn shop with their valuables because they know it will be treated with care and respect. All but Yaya saw a decline in customer base as a result of these incidents. If customers believe the store is shady when it comes to managing expensive gadgets, it may be disastrous for their bottom line. In spite of all these problems, Rick managed to save Chum Lee at the team. Despite their expensive cost, Chum Lee's on-screen role and antics created unforgettable TV moments, which the History Channel comparatively valued. After coming to this realization, Rick knew that firing Chum Lee could disrupt the peace.